I got divorced because of my husband's little secret. I know divorce is common these days, but I guess that's one of those things nobody thinks will happen to them. I definitely didn't expect it. I really loved the man I married. I probably still do. I never guessed he was keeping a little secret from me, which would one day become very scary. For years, we were so happy. We had 2 kids, and he was so supportive from the start. He was such a great dad, and nobody could have asked for a better husband. He was my rock. I don't know what I would have done without him. He was always the strong, level-headed one in the family, so I never expected anything to go wrong because of him. One day, I was coming home from work just like normal. I just picked up the kids from daycare. They were still really young, 3 and 5 years old. They were in a great mood because one of their classmates had their birthday that day, and they'd had cake. But it also meant they were a little hyper from the sugar. We were all happy, laughing about stuff together like the perfect family we were. Then, I opened the front door. There was blood all over the floor. Not just a few drops either. A lot of blood. The first thing I thought of was protecting my kids. I thought fast and took advantage of them being in a playful mood. I closed the door quickly behind me while they were distracted so they didn't see anything, and excitedly told them that they should go play with their friend next door. They happily ran over and knocked on the neighbor's door. I followed. The neighbor, their friend's dad, let the kids in, and I quickly whispered to him what had happened and that I needed his help. He said he'd call an ambulance while the kids were playing, and I went back to check what had happened. I was terrified when I opened the door again. I was scared that my husband, who was always so protective of us, might have tried to stop a burglar or something. He was a big man, a gentle giant, so he might have thought he could fight off an intruder, which wouldn't have worked if they had a gun. Or maybe he was stabbed, or just a terrible accident. All these awful things were running through my head, but I didn't expect what I was about to see. I followed the trail of blood into our bedroom. The first thing I could see as I slowly opened the door was a bow saw covered in blood, like I'd found myself in a horror movie. Then, a pool of blood. Finally, I saw my husband. At least, I thought it was my husband. It was actually just his leg. He was a little further away, half awake and covered in blood. Now I was sure I was right, and he'd been attacked. I started frantically asking him what had happened. I was screaming and crying and begging him to tell me who had done such a terrible thing to him. I wasn't expecting his answer. "Nobody," he said. Now I was confused. I asked if it was some kind of freak accident, and he said no. I was so confused. Eventually, he told me that he cut off his leg himself. I couldn't understand. Why would somebody do that? Even if something was wrong, you don't just cut off your leg with a saw. You go to a hospital. He explained to me that he'd hated that leg for years, and he couldn't live with it anymore. He wanted it gone, so he just cut it off. He said he'd looked it up on the internet. It was a condition called BIID or something. So he just cut off his leg because he didn't like it. I didn't care what condition he had. That was crazy. It just didn't make sense. Nobody just does that for no good reason, but he insisted that was the truth. He did it just because he felt like it. My perfectly stable, strong, caring, gentle husband had just done something insane. Now I was scared. I panicked and ran out the front door. This wasn't like the man I thought I knew. He was clearly crazy. I needed to protect my kids, so I waited outside just long enough for the ambulance to arrive. I told them what had happened and everything my husband had told me, then grabbed the kids and ran. We stayed at my parents' for a while until the divorce went through, and we could find a new place to live. I don't want them to be around him now because I don't trust him anymore. He still says he's not crazy or dangerous, that he never hurt anyone else. It was just something he'd wanted. But how can I believe something that crazy? He never mentioned anything like that to me. He kept that little secret from me for so many years that it became a huge, scary problem that nearly destroyed my life that day.